Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Things We Said Today, our weekly talkathon about the Beatles, where we talk about everything, about anything and everything we can think of. I'm Steve Marinucci, Beatles Examiner on Examiner.com, and I'm going to introduce my three co-hosts. First, from Beatle fan, Mr. Al Sussman. Hello, Al.
Hey, Steve. How are you? Hello there, everybody.
And also from Beatle fan and our resident musicologist who knows everything about anything, including Life with the Lions, Mr. Alan Cozen. Alan?
Hey, Steve. Hello, everyone.
And finally, last but not certainly least, our longtime Things We Said Today partner, Mr. Ken Michaels, host of Every Little Thing. Hello, Ken.
Hey there, Steve. Hi, everybody.
Our special guest today, who was on stage with Paul McCartney in Columbia, South Carolina, is none other than another Beatle fan person, Mr. Rick Glover. Rick, how are you? Mr. Rick Fans on the Run. I should have said Rick Fans on the Run Glover. Anyway, Rick Glover. How you doing, Rick?
Thanks so much. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hey, Rick.
Great.
Good,
Great
Rick.
to have you, Rick.
Today we're gonna have kind of a round robin about a couple of recent Paul McCartney shows and Rick's experience on stage. Ken and Al saw Paul in Philadelphia. Alan and I have not seen him for a while. And Rick, of course, was on stage with Paul in Columbia, South Carolina. And I guess we should start with that, Rick. You've been to how many shows?
The Columbia show was my 135th show since 1976.
Okay.
Before any of you guys were alive, I guess.
I wish.
Yeah, I really wish. I'm gonna start. I guess we'll go around and that. But let me just ask, how did it happen? I mean, what happened before to get you up on stage?
Well, I had never made any type of sign other than just the banner that said "Fans on the Run" for all the other shows since the 90s. I'd been making the sign banner for from the audience, just to say hello to Paul, Fans on the Run. And I realized I was coming up on sort of a milestone of the 135th show there. So I thought it might be, I thought it might give him a little kick to see someone out there in the audience that has been to 130 that many shows, you know. And so I did make a special sign for that show that said 135th shows. And then a friend of mine named Dave Takis had made these really, really groovy little Fans on the Run buttons that are a play on the album cover for Wings at the Speed of Sound that says Fans on the Run in this similar artwork from that album cover. And I had given those out to my fellow Fans on the Run, lots of folks that we've traveled or seen each other at least on the shows over all these years. And David had made a batch of those buttons, and I gave one to a lot of my personal friends. And then throughout the course of the week, I'd run into, all the members of the band, Wicks, Rusty, Abe, and Brian. I'd already been able to get a Fans on the Run button to those guys, running into them at the hotel or restaurants around towns and things like that. So I thought it'd be really, really great if I could actually hand the bass player one for to complete the set. So I made the sign that said, "It's my 135th show. Could I please give you a Fans on the Run button?" And Paul saw that, and during the encore break, that's when the security guy for Paul usually comes out and finds the folks that are going to be pulled up on stage. And he was looking around in an area that I was not sitting in and thought, well, he'd chosen someone else. And then all of a sudden, Brian Riddle, the security guy, came from sort of behind the seats and told me that I had been chosen to go up. So we just scurried down the aisle and waited over beside the stage before Paul started coming up. So the answer is I didn't know myself until just a few moments after Paul had left the stage for the encore break.
Wow. Al?
Now, they all, if I'm remembering correctly, they all know you. Because, I mean, after all the shows you've been to, and you're always right down front. So I'm assuming after all these years that they know you.
his security folks have seen me a whole lot for sure.
So,
and actually through Facebook, I've been at least chatting back and forth with several of the band members as well.
Sure.
And a lot of his crew do recognize me by sight. Now, when you say do we know each other, or do they know me? Only by sight and a wave at the shows and things like that. I don't bother them or try to distract them from the jobs that they've got to do during the shows. But over the years, we've gotten more and more. It's kind of like seeing old friends that you know casually at least, and a few of them actually do know me. It sounds strange to say this, but know me by name at least, because we've chatted so many times over the years.
Yeah, well, Paul certainly does.
Paul mentioned, in fact, that when I was walking out, he says, we know this guy, we've seen him everywhere, or because he's been to 135 shows or something like that.
Sure, you got to tell the story about the Hitsville meeting.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, that happened about, I guess it's been 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
Wow. When we were up at the up in Detroit to see Paul play the concert up there, and all this the details of this story were all in a special issue of Beatle Fan magazine when that happened, and. But I just went to the museum to go to the museum, and as I'm leaving, 4 big SUV limos pulled up, and Paul bounces out of one of them, and then he, this sounds so strange to say it this way without saying, hey, look at me, but Paul got out of the limo and looked like he immediately recognized me and actually introduced me to his wife, Nancy, as the guy that's been to so many shows, and asked me how many I'd been to at that time. But the funniest reaction to that was when she says, "Oh, I know." So
yeah,
they do recognize the fans that are there regularly. I know that for sure.
Sure. You know, he has a really good memory for faces. I've seen it in action myself. I interviewed him in 1990 the first time, and that was really the only time we had met. And a year or more later, he did a press conference at Carnegie Hall because he was going to do the Liverpool Oratorio there. And after he got off stage, he asked the Carnegie security people if that was me and if they could bring me back, because he wanted to talk to me about my review of the Liverpool Oratorio. I went to Liverpool to cover it. No, well, it was generally a positive review, and he thanked me for giving it a chance because everyone else was so snide about it. Right. But I was struck. I mean, I spent maybe an hour or a little more than an hour with the guy over a year before, and he sees millions of people, and why would he remember me? I mean, so I was kind of struck by that because of the number of people that he sees, and so it doesn't surprise me that he recognized you. I mean, you're at so many of the shows and you've got the banner, and and I think he's someone who I think really engages with his fans who are who are seriously sort of devoted to his work. I think he appreciates that as big as he is. It's just something about him.
Well, I think he appreciates it too, and that's one of the reasons that I've done it, to let him know that at least there are still a few of us diehards, certainly enthusiastic fans that want to be there to support him and let him know that we love him and we appreciate the things that he's done for us both, sort of certainly musically and kind of personally. It's affected so many lives in so many ways, and
sure,
I'm certainly one of them that got the effect and never got over it so many years ago.
Rick, I got 2 questions. First of all, there's a photo that you've posted on Facebook, and it's a close-up of you and Paul. Is that from the Hitsville experience?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, your avatar photo.
Okay.
Where we're shoulder to shoulder outside.
Yeah. Right.
That happened at just as we were leaving. Well, the details on that, when I saw Paul really approaching me, all I had to do was stand still when he was coming there. His security man got between me and Paul, and there were a couple other photographers there from Motown too, and one of them had a large card that looked like he was going to ask for an autograph, basically. And his security guy said, no autographs here we're just here we're off the clock or something like that. So I didn't ask him for an autograph at that time because I'd already got his autograph. But when I said, I asked him if I could do a photo with him. He said, "Sure, man, let's do it," and put his arm around my shoulder. And I was trying to do this self-portrait, the selfie thing with the long arm, and my hand was shaking so bad. Paul noticed that my hand was shaking, and all we were going to get was a blur. So he suggested, actually, he told me, and he says, "Give it to him," pointing to the security man. He's good at it. So he's the one that ended up taking the photo of us outside the Motown Museum there.
Very nice. Yeah.
And ever since then, too, I've learned his name is Mike, and ever since then, Mike has been so pleasant and so friendly, and always comes over and shakes hands with if we're at the limo watch or in the middle of the crowd at the in the actual arena or wherever it be. I think they recognize too that there are some regular fans that are that it's okay to be friendly with instead of having to worry about whether they're going to try to cross the line or be a problem for them. I don't want to make their job any harder than they've already looking at a tough hole.
Yeah. There's some other photos that you posted of you with the other band members, and it looked like it was in a hotel or something. Where was that taken?
Well, a couple of times there were a couple that were in a hotel. There was one, let's see, I'm thinking through. The Wicks photo was in the Charlottesville, Virginia hotel, and the Abe photo was in the Charlottesville hotel. That was between the first and second shows of that week. And then the Rusty and Brian photos were at the hotel in Columbia, South Carolina. A couple of my traveling companions for this trip were staying at the hotel that the band was staying in, and both of those actually happened by accident, just because of the convenience to the arena where they were playing. Right. So I would always drop the girls that we were traveling with off at their nice hotel while I went to the Red Roof. But at least that gave me a legitimate, or at least quasi pseudo sort of legitimate reason to be in the hotel there. But every time approaching those guys, they're always so friendly, and they seem to enjoy their fans as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So that was all those were actually in hotels. We ran into them a couple of times over just kind of casually in a restaurant at one point, and just walking down the street there in Charlottesville, Virginia. Nice little town that is. Mm-hmm. But we didn't really, just a wave in most cases, just so we wouldn't again be taking up their time and imposing on their personal space and time.
Okay, let's get to the part where so the security guy came to get you, right?
Yes.
And he brought you up on the stage, and how long of a delay when they took you from the audience to the stage? How long of a delay was there before you actually started? Were with Paul?
Probably about the length of one song. Got back there, and I know Hi 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 was playing, which was fairly appropriate. And I'm trying to think through the end of this order of the songs, but I distinctly remember being back at the corner of the stage there for the entire song for Hi Hi Hi.
Okay.
Just a matter of minutes. It was not a long time to sit there and try to. I was actually trying to stand there and drink as much of the atmosphere in as possible. There's a little platform that's just a couple of feet off the floor, not up at full stage height, where John Hamill, Paul's assistant, does all his tuning and prepping all his guitars and things like that. And they moved us up. There was a little girl that was the babysitter. There were two people on stage the night I was up there. The second one was a girl that had saved all of her babysitting money for the last 3 years, was what her sign said. And her mother were back there, and they were just shaking beyond control. They were really vibing hard on what was going on for them. But they moved us up to the little platform there to be ready to step on stage. And I look over at John Hamill, and he's got the Yesterday guitar strapped around his neck, and he's tuning that up for the next song. And I look down at the rack in front of me, and there's the Epiphone, there's the Les Paul, there's the Les Paul Sunburst, there's a couple extra Hofners, the 12-string. And I'm thinking, I could stand here and look at these for a long.
Yeah, really.
And the security guy is, he's saying, okay, here's what's going to happen. It's going to happen really quick. You're going to have just a minute. Paul will ask you a couple of questions. Make sure you give him the button, show him your sign, and then when I motion for you to leave the stage, get off the stage, then don't try to linger or something like that. Basically, realize when your moment is over and move on. So that was about the only prep that I got, knowing that he would ask me a couple of questions. He said he'll ask you your name and maybe a couple of questions.
So then, how long did it take in that little interim there while you were waiting?
It was just literally a matter of seconds. By the second half of the song, by the time the hi kicked into the fast portion of the song, a little coda there, that was when we were getting put literally on the steps to walk up to the actual stage platform.
So what's going through your mind as you walk out on stage?
Well, my head was pretty well spinning. I'm telling you, one of the things that I did think of, because Brian had said, think of what you want to say, and basically have it together there. And Charlie Lightning, the guy that's his roaming video photographer. If you've been to the shows, you've seen one or two people with handheld cameras for the McCartney camp that are constantly cruising the audience, looking for school signs, reactions, people dancing, things like that. Well, he was up there. Charlie was up there on the platform with me, and all these thoughts were rushing through my head. Like, first of all, this is really happening. I can't believe it. It was so surreal. It was like like the old out of body experience thing there. That I'm almost watching myself see this happen to me.
Sure.
But I was thinking, actually, one thought that crossed my mind was my mom was a huge Beatle fan, very, very supportive for my Beatle fandom, or she always was really good with all the records, and she was a big fan of Little Richard and Fats Domino were her favorites. And my dad loved Roy Orbison and Johnny Cash. So you put that set of influences together, and what you got, the Fabs.
Absolutely.
So one thought that did cross my mind just as I was standing there is, I wish Mom was here to see this. She would get a kick out of it. So that's what made me think of, if I get a chance to mention my hometown, that'd be a good time to. Have you guys seen the video and know what I said when I was up?
Oh yeah.
I'd like to just basically give a salute to my mom, and because when I was in my hometown, Bristol, Tennessee, that's where I caught Beatlemania. That's what I saw the Ed Sullivan Show there at my grandmother's house, and that was my roots, and also the roots of my Beatle fandom.
Yeah.
So to give her a salute, and I was thinking too, it'd be also nice to say I'm from Bristol, Tennessee. My mom was a big fan, and that's Carl Perkins country, and to give a little salute to Carl too. But that pretty much condensed to just the fact that it turned into one sentence. I'm from Bristol, Tennessee, and my throat stopped.
Closed up right there.
I did say I'm a hillbilly because on the way up, I'd listened to one of those, I think it was Roots of Rock radio specials that Paul had done back, several years ago. I think around the time of the Run Devil Run album. All hillbilly music, so I just heard myself say that. That's one thing I hadn't really planned to say when I was in that moment that I had to plan anything anyway. But I had been my day job background was I was a corporate trainer for most of my day job career. Right. So I was used to being in front of a group of people and kind of went into an act at least, or I was trying to control the emotional side of being up there by just going into my on stage act. I play in a band, and I'm usually doing the between tune talking for the band. So I was trying to keep it separate from what was really happening there, standing beside Paul McCartney. But when I was standing there in the trying to think of what I was going to say, I know Charlie, again, back to the guy with the video camera, he could see the emotional side of it kind of taking over. And I was shaking. What the hell? My legs were shaking. There's no way to say that wasn't getting to me emotionally there. Sure. And I kind of stamped my foot on the platform a little bit and said to no one in particular, "I've got to get my shit together here." Yeah. And Charlie leaned in and says, "Yes, you do." Just his delivery too. I'm sure his wheels were turning, thinking, "This guy's about to fall apart right here. Yeah. He's going to have to bite his lip or pinch himself or something." But then when I said that, just his casual delivery of "Yes, you do," that gave me a little. Actually, that kind of kicked me into should I say performance mode or. That helped me realize I can't be naturally emotional here. I've got something to say. I also wanted to, if I got a chance, basically just to say, this is going to sound pretty hokey talking to a bunch of guys here, but I just want to say I love you, man, and what you meant to me. And then that's when I really kicked back on my corporate training background. Is you don't necessarily tell the audience what you're feeling. You ask the audience what they're feeling. So that's when I decided to say, if I got a chance to ask the crowd, do we love this man? Yeah. And that's the thing that got the reaction from the crowd that I'll swear, guys, you could physically feel the oomph coming from the crowd on that, like kind of walking behind a jet on a runway. You don't see the thing, but you certainly feel your hair getting blown back.
That was a nice touch.
Yeah.
Rick, what's the farthest that you've traveled to see him?
Well, I guess Ireland and Scotland or Mexico City. If you're talking about distance from Atlanta, I wasn't a geography major, but I think probably Ireland would be the furthest distance.
And have you gone as far as the West Coast in the U.S.?
Oh yeah. I've got a little pen map here, and I think it is 32 different states that I've seen the boy in.
Pretty good.
So over the years. Now, if you remember the 89 to 93 tours, they weren't nearly as geographically challenging as these last ones. We would go on the road for 4 or 5 weeks, and you could do 3 or 4 in a week, and still in some cases sleep in your own bed. And with some of the road work, or do one show and then have a day off and a couple 100 miles, do another show. I remember a great tour that we did with Bill King, the publisher of Beatle Fan, and John So's regular contributor there. We went from Atlanta to Orlando to New Orleans to Memphis up to St. Louis and back to Atlanta in I think about a 9-day period.
I remember
and saw
that. Yeah.
however many shows that was in a little over a week. It was a great trip. But now it seems like he doesn't. We don't get the full length of full list of tour shows, and they're considerably more spread out. So it's been a little more difficult to literally follow the tour as much as we'd like to.
Are you going to Europe, Rick?
For Oslo and these next round of shows?
Yeah.
You mean? No, I just got back. I did 4 shows over in
England.
Birmingham and Liverpool, which is always a thrill to see him in Liverpool. So no, I don't plan to go back, and unless was that an offer? Are you?
No. I wish I could. If there was an offer, I'd be going with you, but no.
I'd have to clear it with my wife, but I'll be glad to go with if you like.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I wanted to say, because we've all watched the video online, and we could all feel what you were going through. Yeah. So, we all just want to say many congratulations and smiles to you, because we're so happy for you, Rick. And I just wanted to add to it that how great it is to not only get a chance to do this, but it's so much better when you don't have that much time to think before you go on stage. Because if you had to wait up there for an hour, you would have been so fried in your brain by the time you went up there. Thinking about what to say. The less time you have to worry about it, the better off it is. So they obviously know that, and it's pretty remarkable when you think about it. It's only recently he's been inviting people on stage here and there, but lately it's much more common. towards the end of the show in the encores. He seems to really like to invite the fans up and share something personal with the audience, or to tell some kind of story, or to have people propose on stage, that kind of thing. It's pretty remarkable. It makes it even more memorable and more personal an experience.
Or get their shoulder autographed.
Yeah, and something unique too. I think it's almost become. It seems like anything with him. Once something becomes expected, he moves away from it. So he's always looking for that unusual balance, because there's been so many shoulders signed now, and so many of the things that, anyway, I'd like to think that he chose me because I wasn't asking for something. I wanted to give him something, and wasn't the same old, sign my head, even though there's plenty of room to sign up there. But
the feeling.
What's so funny? But you know what I mean. If it's getting to be part of the routine, part of the show, there may not be that many more of those. But he certainly does seem to love the audience participation in every way, whether it's just waving the banners and signs, or whether it's actually getting them on stage. He does seem to. He likes the fans. He still seems to be a fan himself.
That brings up an interesting point. I mean, with all this going on, and who he is. I mean, he doesn't have to work for the attention, but the show is set up now to allow for this adoration, and he obviously loves it, and and the fans appreciate it too. I mean, you've seen enough instances, Rick, of fans going up there, and I mean the whole part of waiting for it to come up on stage actually was interesting to hear. I mean, can you imagine? I can imagine some people actually standing up there and actually, really getting nervous, I mean, you've probably seen a couple of instances like that.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We've seen a couple of folks just get up there and totally freeze up because they don't. It's overwhelming. If you glance out to your out toward the crowd, to see 10, 15, 20,000 people literally staring at you, that's just intimidating in itself. And then you look over to your right, and there's the bass player for the Beatles with his hand on your shoulder, grinning at you, waiting for your ears to pop. It's intimidating, even whatever level of comfort you may or may not have on stage. That's the top of the mountain there, man.
Mm-hmm. And was there anything? Go ahead, Al.
That rush that you were talking about, feeling from the crowd, that rush of energy that you felt from the crowd, that probably sums up why Paul still does this. Gotta be.
I have played. I'm a bass player in a blues band, and we've played and got a little. Sometimes there's one couple dancing. There's 12, 15 people in the bar maybe sometimes, and there's one couple up dancing, and that just makes the night. You feel that feedback. Or we've played some big festivals and things where there are several thousand people out there, and you see heads bopping as far as you can see, and that's a unique buzz that. I can see how that would be very, very addictive if you did it every night to thousands and thousands of people that are literally holding up signs that says "We love you." That's powerful, and I'm sure that's one of the things that's keeping him on stage and keeping us happy with those shows.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a bit about the concerts themselves? Years ago, we were talking a little bit about this before you came on, about how his set list changes. Years ago, he really pretty much would do the same set list for the entire tour. These days, he seems to be changing things out a bit more frequently. Almost every couple of weeks we hear that he's added temporary secretary or another girl, or really the last 2 or 3 years he's been doing that a bit more. As someone who's seen as many shows as you have, does it seem like his set list and his approach to it is getting a bit looser, where more things are being pulled in, and you can feel surprised on a night where you think you might know what he's going to play, but he changes up?
Sure, absolutely. Just as recently as this past week there to see One After 909 make an appearance after so long. He teased with that one a few times ago back at the 100 Club, and the shows around that had that in there, but that's been several years since that one popped up and out of nowhere. And for me, bringing "Can't Buy Me Love" back into the set, man, that's any of those true Beatlemania songs. That one I saw her standing there, and the fact that he's kind of built the show, at least now, with some fairly, I guess, generic's not the right word, but interchangeable places in the show where you can swap out an acoustic number here and there, and even some of the rockers. That keeps it both fresh for us, the ones that have been seeing several shows, but fresh for him too. I'm thinking the band and himself want to shake it up just a little bit every now and then to keep it fresh, exciting, and also having to think about playing. You get on automatic pilot when you go through the show. It shows. I've seen many bands especially in his contemporary with him, go to the show, and you can tell they are phoning it in. And if it wasn't for the teleprompters, they wouldn't be able to stay with it. And seems like even though he may occasionally refer to his teleprompter, it's not because he's phoning the performance in. And I think that's the thing that benefits the crowd and the band. And actually, Brian Ray said something about that. So much fun to play some of those songs that they don't get to play every night, and I would imagine that keeps both fresh and sharp. You want to have the band thinking instead of just going through the motions, right?
Yeah. If you're a fan and you get to go to more than one show at a time, like next to each other, 2 in a row, if you're fortunate where you can do that, you might see a different set list, whereas it wasn't that way before. There are a lot of songs that he switches on and off. He'll do I've Just Seen a Face one night, and then he'll change it into I'm Looking Through You the next night. So that's a big bonus for the fans who go to see more than one show.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you get to many of the sound checks?
I've done a few of the sound checks.
Because those are always different.
Oh yeah, every song that he plays in the sound checks, at least the ones that I've been to, he will play for an hour 10, sometimes hour and 15 minutes. Every song, it's very, very unusual to hear him play a song in the sound check that is in the actual set, unless they're working up something to go into the set. And that's the sound check, of course, is when you get the old rockabilly hillbilly numbers like Honey Don't, Matchbox, and Midnight Special, and some also he pretty much always plays the celebration portion of Standing Stone. Right. And if there was one song that should be in the set list, it's that celebration bit.
Yeah.
Because he's got a couple of lyrics to the song. The audience would probably go, "What is that? It was beautiful. I want to know what that is." And it's a very, very emotionally pulling song as well.
Yeah, I guess there's.
They have a lot of fun at the sound check. He will. It's interesting. Sometimes you can hear him. Well, let's play Only Mama Knows tonight, or let's play. A whole lot of shaking going on, and the band goes. I've heard them say, "What key?" So it surprises them too.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes you wish the songs in the sound check he would put into the show.
Yeah.
I've noticed, especially in a lot of Steve's postings, some of the songs in the set list where you go, wow, he's doing Bluebird. Put that in the show. And it's like, you wonder sometimes if he's doing it because he's planning for that eventually to go in the set list.
I remember a few years ago, he had started adding The Night Before and one other song to the sound check, and I thought, you know what? I'll bet when he hits Yankee Stadium, this is I think in 2010 or 2011, that it was the first show on the tour, and on that particular tour, and I said, I'll bet that he'll have added that into the set list, and sure enough, that was there.
Good call.
It's a real treat. I just wanted to say. That was the first show of that tour.
Yes.
So any of the changes we heard for the first time. Yeah. So the night before, 1985, he performed for the first time at that show. So that was a real treat.
Yeah.
So nowadays you can look up easily online what the set list is and not be surprised at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But when it's the first show of the tour, that's really something special.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
I was just going to say, I think the 2002 tour, that one had a bunch of surprises in that one. If I'm correct on was that the one where he first came in through the bathroom window and too many people? And that set list was, full of surprises that night.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that might have been
2002. That's when he started doing Getting Better.
Yeah, I think that was
in
the
2002. 05 was when he started doing She Came In Through the Bathroom Window and Too Many People.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that all comes from the fact that he is, I think, consciously trying to mix it up and get as many of the songs in there as he could too. I'm surprised. I'm still surprised there are several big popular songs that he hasn't rehauled out into the set list in this last 10 or 12 years that he's been out so regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun to hear the world premiere of, let's say, Temporary Secretary recently, or I was there the night that he pulled I Want to Go Home. That was a beautiful song that just popped up into the set list for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
How's the we talked a little bit earlier about we were talking about the Philadelphia show, but how's the sound mix has been the last few shows, guys? I heard the one before Philadelphia. I heard I can't remember if it was Columbia or not. Was not good. I heard, but Philly I heard was good. Is that Rick? Do you know what I'm talking about? The sound at the shows.
Sure. I think it was the Charlottesville show that had a little bit of that. That was the smallest arena that probably I've ever seen him in. That the back wall for that was a little basketball arena, and the back wall for that was seemed very, very close. When I turned around and looked, it looked like it was like half house for some of even the indoor arenas that I'd been into. But I think there was like 20 rows in the first section on the floor, and I think only about 16 or 18 rows in the second section, and then then the stands started going up, and they were very, very, very high. And I think the flatness of that back wall and being so close, I think that did set up just a little bit of, I don't know exactly how to describe it. Was it reverb, or certainly it wasn't feedback, but it just made it a little more tight in the room, which didn't let the sound spread out as well as it does in some of the bigger arenas. But Philadelphia, I do remember the sound being really, really nice and distinctive there.
The Philly show, I was very impressed with the venue, with Wells Fargo Center, because I think it's one of the newer arenas. And Ken was saying a little bit earlier that he was very impressed with the sound. How did you like it, Rick?
Oh, I liked it. Very, very good arena. Very easy to get in and into. Sometimes there's just this fiasco of either security or lack of organization and things like that. Ken, we were standing over there by that where the band was playing, and once they opened the doors there, that all went in with a big whoosh. Mm-hmm. And was that one too? I think that one was one where it seemed like there was just a little more knee room or elbow room at the seats too. It wasn't packed in. Because the other two venues being considerably smaller than Philly too, they were really packed in, claustrophobic, like in the especially Columbia, South Carolina. There was standing up was the only way you could get a room to breathe. Hardly, of course, standing on the floor for the whole show.
I thought Philly was a bit tight there in the seats, but the sound quality I thought was amazing. And to me, when I go to a show, especially someone who I'm listening for, everything, the way the band sounds and especially his voice, I'm listening especially for that reason. And too many times when I've seen Paul in concert, the sound's been too echoey, where I can't hear Paul really stand out vocally. But in Philadelphia, it was superb. I can hear everything he's saying. And the real test is when you've got a song where there's a lot of harmonies added to Paul's voice. And if you can hear Paul stand out, that's really good. And that's exactly how I felt in Philadelphia. So I think the sound quality there was just superb.
They do a good job, and I think that's one of the reasons that they do such a long, extensive sound check, is because certainly he's got to walk through all the instruments that they're going to be playing.
Sure.
But his sound crew really they apply the science to their craft, because they always have a really, really nice clean, crisp sound.
Rick, there was some traffic problems according to the reports I got from Charlottesville, and I know you were at Candlestick, and that was also a problem. Although you guys got in early, you got there before we did.
Yeah, that's one.
So you did.
At Candlestick, I did sound check, so I was glad to not have that problem, because that still kind of has a black eye on it. I think just because you heard more about the traffic problems than you did about the phenomenal show that it was.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was lucky that we got there early too. Otherwise, we would have had problems. I know somebody that ended up sitting with us had trouble getting in. She finally got in, but it was a mess. But I mean, have there been many other shows like Charlottesville, like Candlestick, or has generally things been pretty good?
Truthfully, I get there in the middle of the afternoon to do the limo watch or the sound check show anyway, and I just can't. At this stage of my career, my system can't really handle the stress of the unknown of whether you're going to get there in time or not. So I would rather just be there nice and early. 4 o'clock is my pretty much standard arrival time in the afternoon, either to just watch that 8 seconds of limo arrival or to go inside early to do the sound checks. But I can't recall hearing any reports as bad as, certainly not as bad as Candlestick, with literally the cluster fiasco that they had there. And I did hear some reports of
Charlottesville,
thank you, that did have some delays and things like that. But I'll tell you, the arena was well full by the time Chris, the DJ, was on. If it was a problem for some, it was not a problem for the clear majority of the people that were there.
Well, let me ask this then, in a general, as a general tip for people attending McCartney shows. I mean, obviously getting there as early as you can, but can you give people some tips about what's the best thing to do as far as how to get there safe and sound and have the best time? I mean, I obviously, like I said, getting there early is the best thing to do, but in some cases that's not going to happen. But what would you from all the shows you've attended, how's the best way to go?
Well, I think you pretty well nailed it there. You've got to get there early. Make it a McCartney holiday. If it's the day job that's preventing you from being there early, go kick the boss in the balls or something for a few minutes. And I've got to go home. My cat is sick, man, and at least find a way, because I've traveled with some folks before that are pretty much chronically delayed and going to be late for just anything, and suddenly they're on their own. If you got to choose between the frustration of and the risk of literally missing the first or some or all of the show, in case like San Francisco. But there's no magic to it, and it's just like airport security. If your flight is at 2 o'clock, you better be in place by noon, or that's when they're going to want to do a complete body cavity search as you go through, and you miss your flight, and you only get you only get one shot at some things like that. You can't say, "Paul, hold the show for me. I'm 4 blocks away," and that might be 6 hours away. So, no, I don't have much advice there except be there early and often. yeah, apply some common sense, which is going to be a challenge for.
Speaking of traveling companions, is there a kind of like a core group of fans on the run that go to more shows than don't?
Yes. Yeah,
about
there's
how many would you say?
I'm sure I could name 40 or 50 by name that I see routinely enough to be in the regular traveling category. Now it changes from location to location. If you're in the South, there's some good old Southern boys that you're going to see from venue to venue. There's the Northeast contingent up there with Derek and Bob and a bunch of the ladies up there, Mary, and so many that I've known. Another thing too that we've known a lot of these folks for years and years and years, even outside the Paul concerts.
Sure.
We maintain contact and friendships, and certainly through Facebook. Facebook's an amazing thing for contact, because I am so personally horrible about returning emails and messages, and as several of you know, just got to get this phone together here in the last 6-8 minutes, it seems like. Yeah, I hear you laughing. So, and also the electronically challenged factor of it for an old man like me. But yeah, the answer was there's a group of the regulars, and we see the same faces and make new friends at every venue. That's another bonus of it too, making so many new friends at these limo watches and sound checks and the shows themselves.
In fact, maybe you can give us a little background on how the whole Fans on the Run thing began.
Well, for me, in 76, I got to see Wings one time. And the full story on that one was I was living up in Tennessee near Nashville, going to school. It was my senior year, and the first Atlanta show was on a Tuesday, second one on a Wednesday. I had a lab. My final senior lab for my major was the Wednesday morning after the Tuesday night show in Atlanta. So I drove to Atlanta in the afternoon, went to the show, drove back to Tennessee, which was at that time about a 6-hour drive each way. So drove back after the show, better living through chemistry maybe, and was planning to go to my 9 o'clock lab, and then finish the lab, get back in the car, drive back to Atlanta for the second show.
Oh boy.
And I was a child. I was a kid. I was 20 something. Okay. And, so came down, did the first show, got back in the car, drove back, walk up to my lab, and the lab, there was a sign on the door that said, "Your lab has been moved to 4 p.m. in the afternoon."
God.
So,
oh my God.
So I did something very, very irresponsible. I went to the lab instead of going back to the Paul McCartney concert, and missed the second show. And then I remember saying to myself at that time, when I grow up, when I have a day, when I have a regular job, I'm going to go see Paul as many times as I can. I'm not going to let a stupid lab about the genus species of squirrels, or whatever the hell it was, prevent me from having that greatest moment of concert event. Little did I know it would be 16 years before I would be able to go to another show, however many, math major again here, 76 to 89, all those years, that number of
13.
years to see, thank you, to see that the second show that finally started the Fans on the Run. Then that's when we saw the list of shows and said we're going on the road, and the phrase Fans on the Run just came to me one night when we were sitting in the hotel. We were talking about remember how the Now, N-O-W,
yes,
was the last of the
right
before
they would take the stage.
Oh, right. He walked out to the stage to the letters N-O-W, so we made a sign that said N-O-W on one side and Fans on the Run on the other side.
Yeah.
And that's since then I've tried to kind of mimic the artwork, the graphics. In '93, they had the moon spinning around the planet for Fans on the. I mean, Paul McCartney, it was a C moon for that. We changed that to the O for On the Run, graphics like that. And now with the stencil look for out there, it's been in place for 3 or 4 years now. So
I wanted to ask a question to everybody here because obviously Al and Rick and I went to see the show in Philly. But since we've all seen Paul recently anyway, and many times, what is the experience for seeing Paul like now? Is it any different than growing up from, say, the first time you saw Paul from Wings on up? Is it the same experience, or is it a different experience in any way that you want to mention here? I mean, we're talking about so many years, so much history that we've had with this man. How is it different now than before, if it is different for you, when you see Paul in concert? Why don't we start with Alan?
Yeah, it's, actually for me, I've seen him in so many different kinds of situations that those are the big differences. I mean, the big venue shows, for me, I don't think have changed all that much. I didn't see him with Wings, so I've only seen him since '89. And but on the other hand, I saw him sing with the band but not play at the Lone Star Roadhouse during one of those Buddy Holly Week celebrations. I saw him at the Cavern for that show. I saw him, actually, one of my favorite performances that I've been to was in the Ed Sullivan Theater for the what was supposed to be Unplugged, but it wasn't. It was I can't remember. Up Close, right. I thought that was a great show. And it was a nice, smallish venue. And I was in the front row of the balcony. So, you're just sort of looking down and there was not all of the big production stuff going on. It was just the band playing. And they were doing some things, I think they, Penny Lane and stuff like that I hadn't seen him do before. And so that one I have probably the fondest memories of. I'd like to have had fondest memories of the Cavern, but that place was so packed, and also I was a little disappointed by the fact that it wasn't the Cavern as visually as you see it. It was the big room next door. But and the last time I saw him was Yankee Stadium, and that was a trip too because it was Yankee Stadium, which some of you guys don't have that emotional resonance.
Of course.
But
I don't.
Yeah,
Go Red Sox.
Yeah,
is that basic? Is that football or basketball?
The Red Sox are Little League and the Yankees are an actual baseball team. And I say that, with some trepidation now that I live in Maine and the place is brimming with Red Sox fans. Right. But yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun seeing him in Yankee Stadium, and even I think it was the new Yankee Stadium, so it only partly counts. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't, in the spirit of the question, I guess, is how it's changed over the years. But for me, the changes are really, what kind of thing I'm seeing, because I've been really lucky to see so many different kinds of things that it's always a little bit different.
I can't say I've seen Wings because I haven't, but I would say it has changed. You'd have to. I mean, the fact that the Wings shows, were a smaller scale. They were a little more intimate. That's not the case anymore, and I think the shows suffer a little for that, but not that much really, because of how good they are. I mean, they're great. He does a great job. You have to give him that much. Mm-hmm. But I do think the intimacy of the Wings shows, from like Wings Over America, is missing. But whatever. I mean, it's still a good show, and we've compared the bands here before, and it's really, I mean, it's not a matter of that, because the bands are both great, so. But
how about you, Al?
Yeah, I think, I'm sure Rick and I would agree. There's only one first time, and seeing Wings at the Nassau Coliseum, May 21st, 1976, will be with me for the rest of my life. So, and I'm sure it was the same with Rick when you saw them, even in that first show. And it's so there's no comparison. But for instance, in Philadelphia, I was seeing the show with somebody who had never seen Paul live. So I was able to kind of experience what she was feeling, and she really enjoyed the show. And it's having seen him now, I mean, nothing like the number of times that Rick or Bob Cannon have seen it, but a fair number of times. It's still it's a very enjoyable show. There's no question about that. But it's, again, it's not the first time.
When did we all say exactly when we saw him first?
What was your first one?
my first one was Memorial Stadium on the Flowers in the Dirt tour.
Uh-huh.
I think that was 90, because I remember Linda yelling out at the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first, and I've seen him several times since. The one that sticks out in my memory and will always stick out, Rick, is The Joint.
Oh yeah.
And I think I have not seen a better show than that show. That was stupendous. Loud and stupendous. Which is where Rick and I first and loud. That's where Rick and I first bumped into each other. And but yeah, that thing was loud. I really am disappointed that it's my fond wish that they release that show. I mean, that was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. And he did Live and Let Die in that little room, and I mean little. You were talking about one of the was it Charlottesville that was small? The joint
Yes.
was smaller. The joint.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah.
Oh yes. That was like a gymnasium almost. It was so small.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was an amazing show. But yeah. But I first saw him at Memorial Stadium. So anyway.
How about your take, Rick?
Well, my first show was the May 18th, 1976. Oh, no, but I'm sorry. The question was compare now to first shows and stuff. It seems like because he has been pretty much consistently out on the road since 2002. There was a little break there around the middle of that period for undisclosed reasons or reasons not known to bring up. But what I was saying is that it seems like that over the last few years and these last few rounds, it's been almost like going to visit an old friend or an old relative. You're going to be familiar with the guy up there on stage. You know what to expect, never disappointing from what to expect. But there is a pleasant familiarity now that let's go see Paul. And I don't want to say the excitement has been less, because I always try to say that once as we're leaving the hotel or wherever, well, let's go see Paul McCartney. And that usually gets a good adrenaline flow. And that kind of familiarity, there's maybe a little bit of loss of the intensity of it. But once, at least once per show, when they'll kick into a Beatlemania show, I'll try to literally say out loud, "That's not Paul McCartney up there. That's the bass player for the Beatles up there." And that always has an emotional reaction. I can feel my throat tightening right now just thinking about the fact that the guy that gave us so many good songs, so much fun, so many smiles back literally 50 years ago now, is still up there doing the same thing and causing the same reaction. I love, Al, you mentioned sitting with someone first show like that. I love watching the newbies, the kids that have not seen that and had that experience and that adrenaline rush through their system. That because it's like getting slapped with a fly swatter or something. It's really, really a powerful thing. And that first time, you never forget your first time. And those kids, which is another kind of bonus of him being still out on the road at 73 years old. He's given these kids who weren't even born during the 76 tour a chance to stand and hear those beautiful, wonderful tunes that have been the backdrop soundtrack for our lives. We're all in the similar age bracket on this show here. But when I see the kids coming up and being able to say, what was it like waiting on Rubber Soul? What was it like when Sgt. Pepper flipped out? What was it like when the Beatles broke up? And to those kids or younger folks as the gurus who lived through those days, you can see it. You can see it in there. Right? We saw it at the old Beatle fan conventions when the kids would walk up and subscribe to Beatle Fan. There, Al.
Sure.
Why would these kids be interested in these old farts that are not even of their time? They're looking at it as a history lesson, where seeing it live, you have that experience that touches your life. I don't know how to describe it. So we're very fortunate as a population of fans that we're in these wonderful evenings with the creator there, you know.
Yeah, we are.
Well, I can relate to so much of what you just said there, Rick. But for me, the experience is very different now than it was before. I did see Wings in '76. I saw them at Madison Square Garden. First time I ever saw Paul, and to me, that will always be the greatest concert of my life. Mainly in terms of the performance itself, whereas now it's so much more than that. You've got so much more history behind Paul. There's so much more emotion built into the concert. You've got the tributes to John and to George and occasionally to Linda. You know, all that ties in. And for me, it's not just about the music anymore. It's also looking at the people in the audience, seeing the different age groups. I mean, I was watching a father and son in Philadelphia. The father, I would guess, is probably about 30 years old, and his son, I would guess, was 10. And they're both bopping to Beatle music, and I'm amazed that this 10-year-old, or I think he's 10, knows this music. And at the same time, I'm also seeing this 30-year-old enjoying the full concert and hearing he obviously knew more than just the Beatles stuff. He was getting into Let Me Roll It like there's no tomorrow. You know, so seeing all these different age groups at a concert, all relating to this music. And it's such an incredible thing. You've got, you know, more than 50 years of history with this man for so many of us. And, you know, some people, every time I bring my wife, she's crying in the middle of the show. Every time he does The Long and Winding Road, tears come down her face. You know, that song does something to her. And just to know also that we really should feel blessed that this man's doing anything anymore, let alone giving us a concert that's almost 3 hours long. And yes,
he could do an hour and 10 and people still leave happy.
Oh, sure.
You know?
Right.
I got to say, when he walked on stage at Candlestick, this shudder just went through me. It was like, I can't believe I'm actually seeing him again. You know, even though I'd seen him before. I mean, just to be in the same airspace with him. Same with Ringo, but I mean, it's you know, you just feel it's hard. You try to, especially if you're writing about it or reviewing it, you try to stay try to be a little low key and try not to get too emotional. But boy, when he walks out on stage, I'm sorry, there's just no getting around it. You know, there really isn't. I mean, one of the most creative human beings there ever has been. And you're looking at him, and he's maybe looking at you. I know, I haven't been. I have to say, I mean, other than some a news event when I covered it in Hollywood, and I was right next to him. But I did have when I saw him in San Jose. God, I can't remember when he did one of the San Jose shows, and he pointed at me, and I'm almost positive. I mean, he pointed at me, and boy, that was just thrilling to have that. I mean, it's not being up on stage, but when he points at you, you know, that's just too much.
It's like being hit with a stun gun.
Right.
It's like being hit with a stun gun. I've seen him do that to people after press conferences. Just walk down a line of 12 people, and every one of them look like they've just been hit with a cattle prod. Zap, 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 zap. I gotta go now.
Yeah, what is that called? Significant eye contact or something like that?
That's what we call it.
I've seen stories where reporters have written that they have, you know, that they've talked to him after, you know, when they've written up their interviews, and it's like, I'm supposed to write this impartially, but I can't. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen here, you know. And they just melt, and you know, and it's.
Well, I have to
really
say,
interesting
I'm really glad to hear you guys say that, because I guess everybody has their own experience that they walk through, and I was thinking, I've always thought that I'm the only one that gets that emotional or affected by the significant eye contact or the whole the event as a whole, and if it ever stops having that effect on me, that's when I stop.
Yeah,
because that's the emotional impact that event has is a very, very much a you know, like the Priceless type commercial. There's no way to put either a dollar value or a measure on that. But if it ever stops for me, that's when I stop going. And I think if it ever stops for Paul, that's when it'll stop for us all.
Yeah,
because he clearly feeds on that thing that we were just describing there, and he seems to still love it and get the same buzz that we do from it. So I hope that never stops.
Steve, you were just saying something that made me realize, I've been noticing in recent years, every time Paul does a concert and I read a review of it, every single one of them is glowing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never see anything negative about his concerts at all. And when you reach, I guess, that icon status, and also someone that, you've shared so much history with, it's almost like impossible to complain about someone who has given you so much and is still giving you so much. So it's just remarkable,
And believe me, if you do say, if you do write things about, problems at shows, you hear about it because people don't like to read it. But I mean, one thing that was getting into this, my McCartney contact moment was at the Walk of Fame ceremony, because I was down right in front taking pictures, and he came and stood directly in front of me, like 3 feet in front of me, because there was a kid several rows behind me that had a Hofner bass replica that he ended up signing that was passed over to him. But he stood there, and I'm taking pictures, and I'm trying to think of something to say, and I couldn't say anything. I was just shaking. I was literally shaking, trying not, I was just trying to make sure I got the pictures, which I did. But boy, I'll tell you that. I mean, yeah, I know that's how it is. It's just, it's incredible.
Overwhelming.
Anyway,
it's
overwhelming is. Does anybody want to ask Rick one more question?
Well, before that, that made me think of one thing I would like to add. That over the years that I have also been talking to his. You mentioned talking that his crew recognize me, or we recognize each other and stuff like that. I hear the exact same type of stories and emotions from them. His personal photographer, his videographer, his security guys, the sound man. Every single one of those guys have over the years told me at least one, if not regular, stories about how he comes to their birthday parties and brings them a gift. He gives them gifts and comes and sees their kids when they're just being born, and the genuine thing that he brings to the table too. So fall back on that corporate thing again. If you got a good leader, you're inspired to do a good job, and if you don't have a good leader, you don't. And those guys say they are literally all inspired to work for him. And when you can get somebody to say that for you, not from a fan perspective, but from an employee standpoint, there's a genuine article that comes with that. It's very, very good to hear them say that, and it's really good to hear you guys say that it affects you in such a similar way than it affects me. I get people that tell me after the show, "Man, I was really surprised to see you rocking out there to Let Me Roll It," or whatever it may be. I expected you to be standing and taking notes and taking pictures all night. Sorry, that's not me at all. So that's good to hear for sure.
Okay, Rick.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Alan, were you going to say something?
No, I think it's vicariously exciting hearing Rick's story of going on stage and reading about it as well, and I think I'm satisfied with the discussion we've had to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, on behalf of all of us, thank you very much for coming aboard and sharing the stories.
Well, sure thing.
And you should come back sometime.
I'm writing down all the notes on this and all literally the blow by blow, word for word, and there is more to the story. We'll be in the next issue of Beatle Fan Magazine.
Great.
I'm sure.
Here we go.
Gee, and how do colleagues of yours from Beatle Fan get a hold of maybe one of those Fans on the Run buttons?
Oh, I see. Now I understand the point of this. Actually, we are working on ways to get more. Those were handmade by a friend of mine just for me, and he has gone out of his way to make another batch. And we are we're looking into a way to get those in the hands of the people who do want them and deserve them. And you're on that list, all you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you very
talk.
much,
We'll
Rick.
talk about how to get that to you. Okay.
Okay. Again, we want to thank Rick Glover for being our special guest today. If you want to write to us, you can write to us at Things We Said Today Radio Show at gmail.com. We have a Facebook page. We have 2 Facebook pages actually, because there's a group and a radio page. And we'd love to hear from you. So I'm just gonna say thanks to everybody, Al, Ken, and Alan, and Rick, and we will see you next time.